What's up, guys? I'm Landon from Shoewear, and today we're checking out the newest addition to Giannis' signature line, the Nike Zoom Freak 4. Let's do it.
He got vision, he got vision, he got vision, ming, 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 ming. He got vision, he got vision, he got vision, ming, 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 ming. He got vision, he got vision, he got vision.
Welcome back to our channel. Today we are taking a closer look at the Nike Zoom Freak 4 and just kind of seeing how they perform on the court. But first I'm going to give you a quick rundown on just some of the basic info for the shoe. So Nike did keep the same box setup from last year's Zoom Freak 3 release. You're still going to get Giannis's like player logo kind of positioned down in the corner. But I mean, this model, I think it did get a price jump this year for like, I think now they're going to retail for $130. So that is up $10 from last year. But I mean, I will say that is still like, you know, right around the average for what most basketball shoes go for though. Like these are now going to be directly in line with the Kyrie 8 with Nike. So, I mean, Kyrie is on his 8th model. Giannis is only on his 4th, but I'm sure, I mean, Kyrie might be about done with Nike anyways. But whenever it comes to the appearance on this shoe, I mean, we do definitely have some changes made from the 3s to this year's 4 model. So the first thing I noticed, the first thing to obviously point out is that the Zoom Freak 4s did lose the strap that was on last year's 3 model. You can kind of see that over my shoulder. I always hate to see the strap go. Like, it's one of my favorite features on basketball shoes. Plus that strap was pretty cool last year. Like, kind of had his nickname worked into the like inner side of that strap. But the easily my favorite part about this year's model is going to be the big reverse swoosh that kind of makes its way onto the upper. And Giannis's line has been like really big on having, you know, that kind of design kind of built into his shoe line so far. Like I was looking through the description like on Nike's site, and they even go as far as to say is like the reverse swoosh is a signature of Giannis's Freak shoes now. So that's pretty cool. It always reminds me of like Travis Scott and stuff like that ever since like I've been seeing that reverse swoosh. Like if you remember all the way back to the Zoom Freak 1s, those might have debuted the reverse swoosh on basketball shoes. It was positioned a little bit lower though. It was kind of similar to this, but it was practically like built into the midsole. Those were super sick. I love that model. And then they actually did take a break on using it for the 2s. But they came back with the smaller reverse swoosh on last year's Zoom Freak 3. Even his like newest like budget friendly release, like yeah, they did. Yeah, they reversed the swoosh on his newest budget-friendly model. So, I mean, I'm not sure how you guys like it. I personally love it. Like, I think it looks really cool. But, I mean, aside from the strap and the swoosh, these do have, I mean, leaving those two pieces aside, these are going to have kind of a similar build to the Zoom Freak 3s. And, I mean, I said this in my first impressions too, but, I mean, this shoe specifically, not even this colorway, but this model, like, it kind of reminds me of a shoe that you'd play tennis in. Like, the forefoot is, like, a lot wider than the heel. So, you are going to have more surface area up there. And they have, like, I'm going to touch on it a little bit more. They have like an outrigger that makes it like protrude out a little bit more, but now I'll just go ahead and touch on a few more pieces so we can kind of move on to the performance side. So these shoes do have a mismatching tongue setup. On the left shoe, you're going to see like a compass, and then you're going to get more of like, you know, that standard player logo for Giannis is going to show up on the right shoe. And that player logo is also going to show up on the back side of the shoe, kind of running along the heel. And then along with that is going to be like this GT run logo with like the circle and like that wavy line kind of running through the middle. That's marked out on the midsole. And that also shows up on like both of his budget-friendly shoes that he's released so far. Like I have to figure out what that means, like why that's there. I have no idea. But on the inside of the upper, you're going to get a forward-facing swoosh that is kind of stitched in there with like a volt color. And then just below that, you're going to see just like some ridges kind of built into the midsole. So, I mean, personally, I really do like the changes that were made to this year's model. Aside from, of course, you know, Nike taking away the strap. I didn't necessarily love that. But now we'll go and take a look and see how these shoes hold up on the court. So now checking out the materials and the performance side, and starting off with the cushioning, I'm just going to lay the setup out there for you before I kind of talk about it and just how it feels. So the Zoom Freak 4 is going to use a lightweight midsole that's hollowed out under the forefoot, and that's where you have two Zoom Air units that are going to be positioned there. And that allows for the Zoom Air units to just kind of compress under the weight and then expand to help with energy return. And then Nike actually says that they're slightly tilted and like kind of primed for your forward motion, like a 100-meter sprinter emerging from the starting blocks so that you can keep on attacking the rim. And anyone who has watched Giannis play more than 5 minutes on the court knows that's where most of his game comes from, just like attacking the basket and drawing contact. So that's not really all that surprising. And then the ridges on the midsole that I kind of mentioned just a second ago in the appearance section are actually some cutouts in the foam just to help kind of reduce the weight of the shoe overall. So, I mean, just like the features like imply, the bulk of the cushioning is going to come, like just be placed at the front half of the shoe. So it's not surprising that that's going to be where most of the softer feel comes from on these. But I will be honest, like the heel is a little bit underwhelming in this setup. Like, don't get me wrong, like I'm all for like a top-loaded cushioning setuap. I mean, I even prefer it now. I used to be way more into balanced feels, but I do like having extra spring in the forefoot as long as the heel like isn't noticeably lacking. And I'm like not trying to bag on the shoe to open up the performance section, but just aren't all that bouncy in the forefoot, and the heel doesn't feel like it's, all that padded, if I'm being honest. And that does kind of line up with last year's, Zoom Freak 3 model for the most part. Like these last two models in Giannis's line have had more of a top heavy cushioning setup, and I'm still playing in them just to kind of see how they loosen up, but I wouldn't say they're going to be as soft as some other Nike shoe lines out there right now. Like between KD, Kyrie, LeBron, PG's lines, they're maybe a little bit behind those. But using our durometer to check out the midsole, these are actually a little bit softer in this area than last year, measuring in at 36. And that is slightly softer than the average basketball shoe. So I don't want to put it out there like this is, a bad model for cushioning. Like the impact protection still feels pretty good. And I wouldn't say like it's going to be as good as some other shoes that are around that price range whenever you're talking about the comfort alone, though. That's kind of my biggest issue there. So now looking at the materials and the support, this is probably where we see the most changes between the Zoom Freak 3s to this year's Zoom Freak 4 model. Like we already kind of hit on how the 4s lost the strap. That's like one of the major differences. But as for the upper material, these are going to have like in the white area is going to be like a thinner textile kind of around where the toes are at. And then the green section in the middle of the upper is a really thin like webbing feel, and it's super stretchy. And it's actually a little bit like transparent or see-through too. So that automatically is going to, help with getting airflow to your foot so you don't feel like you're suffocating in this model. And then along the backside, kind of near the ankle, is going to be a more plushed in, a more plush feel with like a filled in section. But with these materials used on this model, plus losing the strap might, also have a little bit to do with it. These ended up being a really light shoe to play in, weighing 382 grams for a size 10.5. Like that's lower than last year for sure. And that's almost more down in like his budget-friendly line. Like the Giannis Immortality kind of weighs in that same type of range. So I do love that for this year's model. Lighter shoes are just kind of like, more fun to play in my opinion, as long as the support doesn't like suffer because of it. But Nike did throw on some nice pieces to just kind of help cover losing the strap. That was an obvious helper on last year's model. So the Zoom Freak 4 is going to get like an external lightweight durable foam that is built into the outer side of the midsole, and that's just kind of there to help keep your foot stable over the footbed whenever you're making those quick side to side changes. And then with the reverse swoosh kind of running along the upper and just kind of being placed in a higher position on the shoe, that's like basically just a big overlay that makes sure your foot won't try to slide out to the side of the model, and it works really well. Like I haven't had any movement on any of my harder cuts to the upper, and I kind of brought attention to this in like the appearance section, but these do have a really noticeable outrigger that's kind of built in to the midsole for these, making it wider. The Zoom Freak 3s had the same thing, like where you can kind of see those like little cushioning pockets in the midsole where that green bubble's at. That kind of protrudes out from the model just to act as a brace for your foot and just give you some better balance. And I mean, looking at these from the bottom, like you can just tell these have so much additional space in the front half of the shoe compared to a more narrow back half of the shoe, so that is going to help with the balance a lot. But I was honestly just happy to see that this is Giannis's lightest shoe to come in his signature line so far, and the support doesn't struggle at all, so that's a major plus. Wrapping it up with the traction, once again I'll just kind of give you the layout first. So Nike went with a computer generated outsole that is meant to give you multi-directional traction in a pattern that resembles a topographical map. And the whole purpose of this traction pattern is to help optimize ground contact, just give you better change of direction opportunities. This is a spot where we are going to kind of get back to seeing some similarities between the Zoom Freak 4s and last year's Zoom Freak 3. And from early indications on the court, they do play about the same. And I classify that as, good, not great. Like I haven't played in a shoe from like Giannis's line that has like really blown me away for the traction. Like I kind of feel that way with Kyrie's line too with Nike. But I mean, KD and PG, they've been putting out some really good models for traction, especially over the past few years. And LeBron's line finally figured it out with the LeBron 20. I mean, those things are so sticky, but I can't really quite say that about this Zoom Freak 4 model. They are pretty consistent. I haven't been absolutely struggling to get any grip or anything like that. It's not like I'm sliding around out there on the court necessarily, but it just isn't going to be the highlight of the shoe from what I can tell. And whenever we were doing our squeak test, there just isn't a ton of sound coming from this model. And of course that doesn't always tell the whole story, but it does a little bit for these though. But the grooves are pretty deep, and that compared with the rubber, that along with the rubber outsole, that should just allow you to be able to use these outdoors. Like the cushioning is definitely good enough for that, for an outdoor surface too, from what I felt just using them outside the couple times that I have. But to finish off with sizing, this is going to be a perfect true to size fit. Like you're going to get about a thumb's width left over for the length, and this isn't like really a narrow model. Like you can kind of see it right here, especially just like with the wider forefoot. It's a little bit more narrow in the heel, but it's not like super noticeable. So overall, the Nike Zoom Freak 4 looks different, but it does play very similar to last year's shoe. And I feel like this is going to be a lighter shoe though, so I do like that. And the reverse swoosh is super tough, but I mean, expect, kind of the same cushioning feel where you're going to get more going on out front, less in the heel. And the traction's okay, but it's, nothing too special. Great support features though. I'd say the shoe's still not bad at all for the price. thank you guys for taking some time to watch. Feel free to throw us a follow or a sub if it's your first time checking out this video and if you liked it. And then if you're interested in buying the Nike Zoom Freak 4 and you want to support our channel, just click the link that we have here on screen, or we have links down below and in our bio, so feel free to check that out. But until next review, I'm Landon from Shoewear. Peace.